Well, hello, SNOA. Tim Kiefer here. Woo, that's our slideshow is starting up. Here we go. We don't want that. Hey, welcome to our meeting, our seven-person mechanics review meeting. I'm Tim Kiefer, SNOA member for, I think technically 5 years now. The COVID time, that was a fun time, and I actually joined the meeting or joined the association before COVID, right before COVID, and then I was able to participate virtually when I was still in the Chicago area. So it's kind of it was good and bad. Good for me a little bit there, bad for what we were all going through. But that's who I am. I'm gonna we'll get started here in just a couple minutes because I want to give everybody a chance to jump on and make sure that we've got everybody able to find the links and all that fun stuff. It's YouTube, so it should be pretty easy. Sometimes the Zoom stuff we do can be a little bit crazy in regards to trying to get the right Zoom link and then make sure you're muted and all that. Now you don't have to worry about cameras or anything like that. So that's one of the cool things that we do try to do here. But here's the agenda. Whoa, this thing is flying through right now. So I want to go through the agenda real quick here as we get people on board. So here is what we're going to be talking about tonight. So our meeting agenda, we're going to have some introductions of some people who are here. Not all are here, but at least we're gonna have some introductions. We're going to talk about pregame responsibilities a little bit in regards to using 7 officials, free kickoff and free kicks and kickoff mechanics, scrimmage plays, scrimmage kicks and punts, tries and field goals, goal line mechanics, and then we're going to wrap it up here. So, like I said, we are on YouTube tonight, so that's kind of a cool thing. And we're going to go through our introductions here in just a second, but just for everybody so you understand, I am watching the chat, okay? So I'm looking at the chat. I'm looking at the text. We have a text line, which is up there. I see, we got some people who are on who might be watching. If you have any questions, go ahead and text. I'm going to try to keep an eye on what's going on in the text. And then we also have a chat. So I'm going to try to look if you have any questions on anything. Plus, hopefully we're going to have some of our esteemed colleagues and guests kind of helping out with that as well. So making sure that we don't miss anything in that regard. So our introductions, just so we make sure we have everybody with us. So we're going to start out. Here are our introductions right now. We've got Commissioner Larry Hansen. Now the football board for the SNOA, because I know we have some guys from the north who just jumped on. So and Steve, I was gonna invite you specifically, and I forgot. So that's on me, Steve. But I'm glad that you're here. But we got Gary Reed. He's one of the outgoing board members. Tao Fleece, he's one of our board members. Doug Schultz, one of our board members. John Hathaway, he's a board member elect. And then we have our instructional chair, Jim Cavan. Now, what I do know we have with us right now, we do have Larry Hansen. I'm going to bring Larry in, and I want to say thank you for Larry for having us do this. Larry, I know you got a couple words for the troops here, so I'm going to turn it over to you before we jump into this.
Sounds great. Appreciate it. Looks great. For everybody that's on, thank you for taking time out of your family night tonight and jumping on this group. And Tim, thank you for putting this together for all of us. It's football season. We've worked all these 3 months now. Now it's playoff time. So this is a good time of year. The 7-man mechanics, we're very fortunate enough to get these state finals and these semi-final games to be 7-man mechanics. So for those of you that are fortunate enough to get selected for them, we're glad you're here, and we're glad to do it. 7-man mechanics is great as long as we all do it correctly. It makes the game easier. Puts more coverage on the plays and how we have to work them. And what we don't want is 7 ball watchers. When we have 7 ball watchers, then we just defeat the purpose of having 7-man mechanics. So just do your best to try to pick up what you can. This presentation will be sent out when it's over by Tim, and just go through and take a look at it and benefit. But again, it's a pleasure to be the commissioner for you guys for my first year and working with you guys and knowing a lot of you guys, great guys, and men and women, and just knowing our partners across the state are with us, and we're all in this together. And our job is to deliver a knockout for these playoffs for all these student athletes. So with that, I'll just close up and turn it back over to Tim, but I appreciate everybody.
Well, Larry, thank you for, like I said, thank you for having us. And I'm going to bring in Doug Schull. Doug is also with us tonight. If we can get him there. There he is. So Doug, I'm going to give you a chance to kind of say a few words here. So I appreciate taking the time, and then we'll be on our way.
No, I appreciate everybody taking the time out of their busy schedule, especially here with playoffs and finishing up the season here, and dedicating yourself to being better. We haven't had many chances like we did in the past to be able to work the 7-person mechanics. So I applaud you for doing this, Tim, and putting this together short notice and making us all better. Just want to reiterate what Larry said. Big congratulations to those that are going to be selected to work 7-person mechanics. And it is a little bit of a change, but this will hopefully tie in why we made the changes we did in the state mechanics to kind of ease this adjustment from going from 5-person to 7-person. And again, thank you, Tim and Larry and everybody else that's put this together and making us all better.
No, I appreciate it. So if you got anything to shout up, Doug, let me know. Hopefully I'll be able to see you out there with what's going on. So once again, just a kind of reminder, we're gonna go through the presentation. It's best practices. So the stuff we're going to say, or the stuff we're going to talk about, is directly from the SNOA 7-person mechanics manual. But what we're going to talk about is we're going to just do an overview. You have access to this. It's a PDF, and if you don't, let us know. We'll get it to you. But we're going to try to go through an overview of some of the things we see when high school officials go from 5 to 7, and they're not used to working 7. And it's like what Larry was saying, we don't need 7 ball watchers. And so some of the plays we're going to go over tonight, we're going to specifically look at, and it's high school film, by the way. It's not college film. These are high school guys who work 7 that I've gotten this film from across the country, and we're going to learn from that. So I'm glad we were able to see some high school guys, because now you're going to see typical, I'll call them typical errors in mechanics from once in a while, that when we go from our 5 to our 7. So I do see everyone's joining us in here on the chat. Looks like we're doing pretty well. So what we're going to do is we're going to just get started here with our first slide. Now, our first slide, we're going to talk specifically just about pregame responsibilities. Oops, jumped ahead of me again. So pregame responsibilities, we'll go back to that. All right, so it's the same as 5-person with these exceptions. So you can go through the mechanics manual. You're going to do pretty much everything you're going to do in the pregame that you would do with 5 compared to 7, except now the side judge should talk to the timer, because the side judge is responsible for timing in regards to a 7-person mechanics game. So just know that the side judge is the person who should have that conversation with the clock operator, so that way everybody's on the same page. And if they have a radio or whatever, how you're going to communicate, if you got to put time back on the clock, now you know who's talking to that person. Also, the side judge and the field judge should talk to the ball persons, because they're the ones who are probably, if you got multiple balls, they're the ones that are going to be dealing with it, not necessarily the line of scrimmage officials. So usually as a line of scrimmage official in 5, you go talk to the ball people before the game, and then and you be ready to go. Well, now hopefully your side judge and field judge will help out with that. And when it comes to the coin flip, like I said, if you have any questions on this, go to the diagrams in the SNOA manual. The side judge and the field judge will escort the captains to the coin toss. That's a little bit different than in 5. So from a pregame side of things, pretty much the same in that regard, just those minor changes. So now going to our next slide is we're going to be talking about this one. We're going to now, what's the first thing that you do on the game? The first thing you do is the kickoff. So let's talk about the kickoff mechanics. So our kickoff mechanics here, we're going to talk a little bit about lineup and responsibility, and then for our normal, and our anticipated onside kick. So we're going to go through those, and there's the first one. Let me pause that there so you can see that's the onside one. We're going to jump back. All right, so here's this one right now. This is the one we're going to do, or this is our lineup that we are going to do on kickoffs when we have our 7 officials. You can see where the back judge is. Now, for reference, the back judge is up at the field judge. So the on all of our slides, the press box is at the top of the slide. So back judge, field judge, umpire, side judge. And now this is also, we have to consider, our halves. So, like we kind of go back and we flip our 2 sideline officials at halves. We're just going through the general one that's in the mechanics manual, which is the second half. When it's the first half, you're just flipping everything around. So just know that that's how that's going to go. So don't sweat it. You're just saying, all right, this is what I'm going to do in the first half, and now it's the same in the second half. It's just the opposite. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that. So when we kick off, this is where we're gonna start on the kickoff. Now there's your anticipated onside kickoff. It's still jumping ahead on me. Let me run this back. All right, so here is your kickoff mechanics right there. And this is your anticipated onside kickoff mechanic, right? You're gonna move the L and the H to the middle. So here's your normal, and then here's your onside. You see the difference? You see what we're gonna do? This is when it's only a known onside kick situation, meaning at the end of the game, this is a time where it's going to be an onside kick. If it's a normal game situation, you don't want to do this. You want to do this one in those normal game situations. And the thing about I'm going to go wide on it so everybody can see it. The thing about this is that we're going to watch some plays, and we're going to talk about what our spacing should look like in regards to when we do have the kickoff. And one other thing I want to point out is that you notice we still have the L and the H in the middle. They have made a change at the college this year. So if you're like, wait a minute, they changed it. We're not changing. We're staying with what we have always done. The L and the H will go to the middle if we have this known onside kick situation. So it's, once again, this is just to kind of give you an outline of what we're doing. Now we're going to go to the video, and we're going to, like I said, we've got some plays on this in regards to, you're going to see it in practical application. So here's our first play, and you can see there's 7 officials. You've got the officials, the 4 officials up there with the kickers and the receivers, and now you can see their outline right there. So the thing about this is, when we look at these plays, just understand that we're not trying to critique or we're not trying to knock anybody. We're trying to learn. So when we see an official who might not be in the best position, just understand that we're going to take that and we're going to learn from it. We're not necessarily knocking these officials, because when you go to this, you want to try to move back off the white, or not back off the green into the white, or maybe even to the edge of the white. Now, the officials at the bottom of the screen, they seem in pretty decent position, and the officials at the top, it's kind of hard to tell. But that's just kind of where you want to start. You want to start off of the field. You don't want to be on the field. So now you see their starting position, and now we have the kickoff. Now here's what we're going to do. When the ball is kicked, the officials, meaning the back judge and the umpire, who are on the kicker's restraining line, they're going to move into the hash, and they're going to follow the play down the field, just like you're going to see here. You'll see it when it starts to move. Now, the other thing I pointed out is, look at our officials who had the receiver's restraining line. They need to hold their position until all the players go by them. They shouldn't be moving when the ball is initially kicked. They want that ball to be kicked and all the players go by them. Why? Because as we move down, you'll see, where's our contact zone? There's our contact zone. So as it stands right now, we should have 4 officials across the top, 3 officials or to the left in this case, and then 3 officials to the right in this case. And then what's going to happen is that all of our blocks are inside of this zone, and we're able to concentrate on all of these blocks. So as this play continues, you'll see, why did I highlight that? Because if we're doing this correctly, we've got these 2 blocks that are occurring, we'll call them just beyond the point of attack, at a second level. So who's going to pick up these blocks? You're going to see that if we have in this case, the umpire or the side judge or field judge at the top, they're going to pick up those blocks if we have the proper spacing. Because what happens as this play continues, as the play ends, you've got some action there. So now, if we don't see that action as officials, I'm not saying, and the other thing I want to be clear is that I'm not necessarily saying that anything is illegal here. It might be, it might not. We're not here today to talk about the legality of some of this contact. We have plenty of meetings to do that if you want to do it later. What we're here to talk about on this is who sees that and is able to judge it. If you're not watching this action right here on the kickoff, and if you're not in the proper position, then you may miss something like this if you're ball watching and not be able to rule and judge on it. As you see at the top, our deep official gets in there and cleans that up, which is what we're looking for. And that's why I highlighted these players, because you want to be able to see that. That's what we're looking at. That's why we're putting ourselves in this position with this spacing in order to keep our angle and make that call and be able to, or at least rule on a play like that. And so we're going to go to our next kickoff play here. And you're going to see, and I'll get to, if we have any questions, I'll get to them here in a second. So you see up at the top how that official is moving right away. Doesn't need to move right away. When the ball is kicked, the officials on the kicker's line go into the hash, but that official doesn't need to move because he needs to let everybody go by. So then that way we can keep that everybody in between. Because look what happens on this. If we're all in our proper position, this is what it should look like. You'll have the official who is in the middle of the field, who just came on the kicker's restraining line. If that official would not have moved, it's to the right side of the arrow. He should have that angle, he or she. And then our official, either our referee in the middle and our short wing official who had the pylon, is going to have that look. You can see by the result of these arrows, everything is covered. But because that official moved a little bit early and he's now straight lined. And you're going to see what's going to happen on this, because what it's going to be a shorter kick, and now he rules forward progress. On a kickoff like this, forward progress is not his responsibility unless the ball passes him. And a lot of times in that regard, we don't want that. We want to keep the spacing. That's why we're asking that the officials don't move right away, and that way that if you're on the receiver's restraining line, so that way you can allow those players to go by and we keep that spacing. Because as you're going to see as we move through, you don't want 2 officials in the same spot, because that then eliminates the point of having the extra officials if we're going to have 2 officials in the same spot. So that was kind of just an overview of the kicking, because don't forget that if you are on the goal line and you're that official, the short wing official, the H or the L, you're going to take forward progress as far as you can get it. So on a play like that, we would have wanted the official who was at the pylon to come up and mark that, and the other official to keep their space and clean up and not be straight line. So that was the kind of the point of that one. So I'm going to bring in Doug here real quick before we move on to our scrimmage plays. Doug, anything you want to add on the kickoffs that might be important?
Yeah, so you had mentioned clearing the players, letting them go. That's what I call the second wave, right? And so if we do that, that's going to hopefully get a muscle memory going with you, thinking, okay, I got goal line responsibilities. And we want all the plays, we want to box the play in as best as possible. So by holding the line until everybody clears and maintaining a minimum of 5 to 7 yards, just like you would if you're a working 5-person, that will put you in a right spot, what Tim is talking about, and allow you to have that cushion. Because remember, if they should break that, again, we reference in mechanics that generally we hand the spot off in 5-person, right? Whether it's the R or the U to the wing official right around the 30-yard line, right? That doesn't mean we got to get to the 30-yard line. That just means that we have to be cognizant of that. But we always you shouldn't be moving any further than the 40-yard line on a deep kick to keep that line sight and the play boxed in front of you.
All right, cool. Well, so I appreciate Doug jumping in there so we can kind of get a little bit more perspective on that, and we make sure we don't miss anything. So now we are also going to move on. So we talk about kickoff. So then what's the next thing that happens after a kickoff? Well, the next thing that happens is our scrimmage play. So what is our scrimmage plays responsibility? So we're going to talk about the lineup and responsibility, and then offense and defensive counts. So these are just some reminders of things that are done a little bit differently when you have 7 officials. Don't forget on those counts that who's going to be counting. We need to make sure that here's our basic setup. Oops, let's go back to it. Here's our basic setup. So we also have to know who's counting who on offense and defense. Obviously our 3 deeps are going to count the defense. Our referee and our umpire are going to count the offense. And then a lot of times our L and our H might also count the offense. They may help with the defense. That's why line of scrimmage is so tough, because they'll have to do all this stuff sometimes. But they're going to try to catch as many as they can. Oops, that one's jumping through. Hang on one second. It jumped all the way to the end there. That's weird. All right, give me 1 second. Let me re-rack that one up for you. All right, so here it is right there. All right, so now where are these lining up? We want to know where the lineup is on these. Where should we start? So here's the thing. If you look and you count on this one, it's about 22, 23 yards to 25 yards. The one thing I want everybody to remember, and you're going to see some plays on this, is that if you are moving backwards to start your play, you might want to think about moving just a tad bit back, a yard or two. Because if every play as a deep official is a step back, then you're really not, why don't you start there? If you're going to, on every play, take that step back. So just kind of figure out what works best on the game, because you don't want to get beat, and you want to try to maintain a stable and stationary position as long as possible until you do have to move. And you will have to move at times, but a lot of times as a deep official. But just understand that if you find that every single play you're starting out back, just start out a couple steps further, because then you're not having to move like that on every single play. All right, so let's go to our first. So now we know the basic lineup, and we're going to go through a lot of these here in regards to exactly, but you're going to see more on these positioning and whatnot. You can go back to that graph and think. And once again, all these graphs and all these diagrams are in the mechanics manual. So I'm just kind of giving you a preview just so you can see them, so that way you know, all right, this is what we're talking about. All right, so now let's go to our first scrimmage play. And you'll see here, we're going to outline where everybody's at. All right, so you can see where our deep official is there. Now, it could be the S, could be the F. It doesn't matter at this point. We're just going to call it deep and short because we're looking across the field. So we see where our deep official is at. Now, the ball is snapped. Now, watch what happens. Our deep official, did you notice that? He didn't really move. We're going to go back. We're going to start out. You see where he's starting out? He's starting out, we'll call it about 20, looks like 23 back maybe. 20, 22. So the ball snapped, he doesn't move. You can see him. He's not moving. He doesn't need to move because all that action is dictating that he doesn't move. And now, once again, you can see he's not moving, even with that pass across the middle, because the action doesn't necessarily mean that he needs to move. All right, now you've got the catch across the middle. So look at what he does. Look at our short wing official, our flank. They're coming in to mark forward progress because they are responsible for forward progress all the way to the 2, and we'll talk more about goal line later. But you can see our deep official is coming in to clean up. This is how it should look. This is what the model of this type of mechanic should look like. Because now you don't have 2 officials standing on top of each other. You've got spacing, and now the back judge is helping out. And hopefully you got an umpire coming down. So we'll watch it one more time so everybody can see. This is how it should look. Holding, not moving until he needs to. Pass across the middle. Now it's down. Now here comes our short wing. Marks forward progress. Kills the clock for a first down. This is what we're looking for. This is exactly what we'd like to see in regards to when we have a play like this in this 7-person mechanic. So now let's go to our next scrimmage play. Same thing. You're going to see our deep official. And I kind of look out where our deep official's at. Our deep official is is he a little closer? 10-yard line. He looks like he's standing maybe at the 12-yard line. Our line of scrimmage is at about the 32-yard line, so maybe about 20. And watch what happens. Now you see he moved right away. See what happened? Right away, first ball snapped, he's moving back. Now, my question is that if you would have started just a yard or 2 back to begin with, probably wouldn't have had to take those what we call read steps. Okay, so just know that if that's one of those where you want to kind of read the game, you want to read the players, because at this point there's really nobody threatening that official. So now they're in a position where, okay, now you've got this spacing, and you can see we want to try to keep a space like that because you want everything in between the deep official and the short wing official. You want everything in between. So you see there's spacing there. That's kind of what we're looking for. We would like that official to start back just a little bit to begin with, but now we're in good position. So you see the pass comes down. So watch what our official who's deep does. He comes up, he's got a catch, and he marks forward progress. The reason why that arrow was there here is because that's not what should happen. What should be happening right now is that short wing official should be coming up to mark forward progress. Now, can this deep official help out? Absolutely, they can help out. They can give them a yard number, say the 8-yard, the 9-yard. I've got a catch. We should also probably be making eye contact on this one in case our short wing is coming and saying incomplete. Well, I'm giving a complete signal or a catch signal. That would look kind of bad. So one of those on a play like this, we want to make sure we make eye contact with our partner, so that way we're not giving dueling signals. And that's one of those on a play like this. We want to see our short wing coming up and help them as a deep wing what the spot is, but then we also don't want to give those dueling signals because they could happen. So that's kind of on that play. It's good to know to kind of keep your head what we're looking for and not always trying to like take those read steps. So on to our next play, kind of the same thing. We're going to see where I have the arrows on here on purpose is because we have these things called initial priorities at the snap. We used to call them keys, and you'll still see them as keys in some places, but they're initial priority at the snap because a lot of times in the past people would say key. Oh, I know what my key did the whole down, and they wouldn't officiate the down. Well, as part of initial priority at the snap, meaning I've got somebody at the snap, and when the play actually happens, I'm going to officiate the play as needed. If I need to switch a key, if I need to switch a priority to move around based off the action on the play, I'm going to do that. But we still need to know kind of who's looking at who to start out the play, so that way we're in the right position and we don't miss things at the snap. Specifically on this play, you can see our 2 deep wings our back judge is going to go to the middle receiver, the number 2 receiver in this particular one. Sometimes they go to the 3rd receiver. Just kind of depends on what's going on and what type of formation. But in a trips formation like this, our back judge will go to that middle receiver, and then our deep officials will go to the outside receiver. It's really easy for the deep officials because they're always going to the outside guy. All right. Now, you've got two defensive players who are basically bumping and running or playing tight press. So these players these are two competitive matchups. So these are two situations. If I'm a deep official, if I'm the S or the F, I'm going to concentrate on. If I'm the B, I might go to zone a little bit quicker because I don't have an initial competitive matchup right at the snap. Also, what is our H and our L doing? They have responsibilities here. So the official at the bottom of the screen has got that inside receiver, number 3, initial priority to snap. You see this, he's not being threatened, so it's not going to happen. You're not going to have to stay with it very long. And then our other official has the back coming up at the top there. Once again, initial priority at the snap, not much going on. But now it's just kind of an outline, and you got to go through this on every play, knowing this is a good pregame item, knowing who's going to cover who for initial priority at the snap. Because as an official, the last thing you want to do is somebody gets knocked right in front of you, but you said, I was watching my key the whole way. Well, what about the guy right in front of you? He got knocked over. Well, no, I was watching my key. No, we don't want to hear that. We want to officiate the play, but we do, like I said earlier, we do need to know initially who we're going to take a look at. So pregame this. So that way everybody's on the same page. So now we're going to run the play, and you're going to see this pass up the sideline there. Now, where's our official? He's right there. He stopped. Now, when the ball's coming down and you want to make a judgment on action, sure, are you going to have to stop? Are you going to want to stop and look at it? But we probably didn't want to be there to begin with. We probably wanted to be a little bit further back, and you can see now is those times where, I do need to take those back pedals because I've got a receiver threatening me, coming right at me. Yeah, I need to go now. Because by getting stopped right here, we get straight lined. And you can see we want from the arrow, we want to look at it from this angle at the edge of the arrow instead of where that official is. That's our goal. We want to kind of keep our view, our angle as wide as possible. So here we go. Now you've got this play right on top, and once again, we should be having our line of scrimmage official come down here and mark forward progress. When we have two officials standing right next to each other, just like that, once again, why would we bring a 6th and 7th official on if we're going to have two officials standing right next to each other? It doesn't make sense. So this is what we're trying to avoid. You do not want to have, you might every once in a while have this, but you want this to occur the least amount as possible because it doesn't look good, and it also shows that we weren't necessarily doing what we needed to do. Now, it says, or the mechanics say, well, if I'm the deep and I get passed, meaning the runner or ball carrier or whatever passes me, then I do have forward progress. Well, that's the goal, is to not have that person pass you and to keep that cushion all the way to the goal line. So that way the goal line is covered, because if this was a catch and run, you wouldn't have the pylon or the goal line covered on that sideline anymore. The back judge is going to go old school, is going to end up being almost like a 5-person again and have to cover that. So we're trying to avoid the, like I said, the officials standing next to each other. I do have a few more of these scrimmage plays, but because I've been kind of rambling for a little bit, I'm gonna let Doug come in, and if Larry's got anything to add, go ahead. Now it's time. Doug, what you got anything to add here before we keep moving on with a couple more of these plays?
Yeah, there's a couple of things in the mechanics manual that will say the short wing or the H or the L, depending on it. H always has number 2, right? But you go back to that formation where he showed that trips and number 2 and 3 are not pressed, right? They can't be fouled. And Tim brought up a good point, getting away from keys and initial responsibilities, right? So it's initial responsibilities and area of responsibilities. In that situation where you have the 2 inside guys that are uncovered per se, and they can't be fouled, We don't want to officiate dead air, right? And so you can almost let those guys declare. And if you watch that play, they went 7 yards deep, if that, maybe 5 to 7 yards on that, right? So that falls within that, what we call a 10-yard belt for the short wings, which is your bread and butter in that aspect on that. So don't get confused if you're reading in the manual and it says you have the number 2 receiver. Again, just think of initial responsibilities and an area of responsibility. So that should lead us into always finding action. We always want to officiate action. The other aspect of that he's talking about with the deep wing, as far as the field judge and side judge, we always want to try to maintain a 10-yard cushion. And if we just always think about how we are keeping the play boxed in between the 2 officials, that will hopefully remind you, I got to maintain that 10-yard cushion in that aspect. One thing I had the privilege of working with a great guy, Jeremy, from up north. We did a 7-person game at Gorman, and one of the things he did with me, he was my deep wing partner. We always made an effort to look at each other before we did anything, right? So we always made that eye contact. The other thing he would do is, instead of taking the spot, he might walk within maybe 5 yards of the spot, and he would come into clearing out the players, right? And he would just tell me, Doug, I got it at the 13. Doug, I got it at the 15. And I'd move right to that spot, and it looked like we knew what we were doing from the get-go. When it's done right, it's a beautiful thing to see happen. But those are just some things I want to stress, is the aspect of what Tim was saying, making sure, because we're not used to having a D partner. We're used to owning the spots and figuring it out on ourselves. This is the beauty of having 2 other people down there, to where you get that help. So keep that in mind when you're working with the person on that, because it is ingrained in us to always take the spots, and we revert back to working the short wing as a deep wing.
Yeah, and I think that's good advice in that regard, because we're just so used to running down. Just tell yourself you got the help. Tell yourself you got the help. And if you're the deep, tell yourself, I've got my guy. I got my guy. I mean, that was perfect. Exactly. How to pregame this, and to just not go out there and say, oh, we'll figure it out. So that's kind of a good way to go about it. So here's our next play in regards to just some stuff. So here's kind of what we were talking about. Here's a bunch. They call this a bunch. Who's going to declare who's going to declare what. Now, the reason why I'm showing this play, and Doug kind of already went through it a little bit, is because here's our deep official over here. Now, if you count the yards, he's at about 17. That's probably a little tight. We probably want this official to be a lot further back. Now, obviously, you read the game, you understand the game, but we're looking probably at this official to be a little further back, because see what's going to happen on this one, because we got to see who declares who. So now, who's looking at what? There's really only one thing going on at the snap, and it's right here. There's really nothing going on up at the top. And look what happens with this guy. He gets swung around. So once again, like I said, we're not necessarily going to dive into is that a hold or not? I think it's a hold. I mean, grab and restrict, turns him around, point of attack. Who's going to see that? Who's going to look at that? We had that extra official now, and we miss a call like this. We miss something like this, because our line of scrimmage official, was he ball watching? Where was our deep looking? Where was our back judge looking? This is point of attack. One of those 3 officials, and maybe even the umpire, but one of those 3 officials should have an opinion on this. And maybe they thought it wasn't a hold. I mean, it's possible. But at the end, we don't want to miss something like this, or have an idea of, or not have an idea how that player got there, because we didn't know who were our initial priority at the snap, or areas of coverage are. We zone this up. We know somebody should be looking right there. It probably is the back judge. definitely, and also could probably be the deep official because there's just nothing going on. Yeah, maybe our line of scrimmage official is screened out a little bit, but somebody's got to see this. And I think that's the point why I put this clip. Well, I know it's the point why I put this clip in, is that when we add that official and we miss something like this or don't get eyes on it, then they're going to be like, well, why do we have extra guy out here? So, or extra guys or gals. So just know that's what it's important to focus in and see these type of engagements so you're able to rule on them. All right, here's our next one. You're going to see up there at the top. Now look at where we're at. Now you see our deep official is still kind of backpedaling a little bit, and you see where our back judge is. You know, our back judge, he's in pretty good position. He's keeping it boxed in. Maybe our deep official could have been a little further back, but watch what happens now. Now that player's down. Now you see, once again, not their forward progress. You see our short wing coming up to mark it, and we've got those two officials standing next to each other again. It's so hard. Let me tell you, I'm making it sound so easy, like, oh, blah, 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 blah. No, this is difficult for you to have that discipline as that deep official to remember, oh, I don't have forward progress. I don't have forward progress. I don't. I'm so used to it, but I don't. So just because what happens is then you look like this, and we're trying to avoid that. So keep that distance, keep at least that 10-yard cushion, maybe a little bit more depending on the play, and that way you're giving yourself that little bit extra to not go there and to make that spot. So just something to keep in mind. We're going to go to our next play now. Once again, this is the majority of the plays we're going to get. I mean, we talked about kickoffs. We're going to talk about scrimmage kicks and goal line here in a little bit, and field goals. But these are the plays that we're going to see most of the game. It's going to happen here at the bottom. Now, you see our line of scrimmage official kind of backing out that way. Probably should have gone further back towards the tarp, but I can understand why he didn't want to go on a tarp, so fine. He's moving out of the way. So now look what happens downfield. We got this pass. Now we see our deep official, and our deep official realizes, I got to keep that cushion. Now he's doing the best he can. If we can backpedal, great. If not, he's going to look over his shoulder and still officiate. Don't forget, you still have to officiate. Now watch what happens here. We see our short wing. Here he comes. This is what we're looking for. He comes and he marks the ball. Now, we don't see our deep official on the screen, but we would hope our deep official would be now coming into the action to clean this up, to see that, we call it the accordion. So it's kind of back and forth. And you come in, you make sure everybody, all the colors separate, and then you go back to your position. But this is a good example of the official coming down and marking the spot, the short wing, because that's what we should be doing, and that deep official trying to keep that cushion. So good example of that, because as you can see, he plays through. It's exactly where we want to be. I'll play it one more time. You see the official comes out, and now that official tries to maintain their cushion. Could they have been a little further back? Yeah, but I don't want to be critical. And now we've got the spot, good spot. Here we come, we clean up. That's kind of what we're looking for. All right, here's our next one. You're going to see the quarterback is going to throw a screen. Now it's going to happen at the bottom. So you see there's a potential hold there. All right. So now look what happens. We got great spacing here, and look at our official. We've got dead ball action. He goes to dead ball action. We're only missing one thing here. And look, even our back judge gets involved, which is great. I'm going to run it again because we're kind of missing something here. What are we missing? Yes, we've got a foul here, and our line of scrimmage is throwing the flag on this foul. Great. But we got to continue to officiate, because if our deep official is doing what he's supposed to, which is exactly what he's supposed to right here, he's not going to have forward progress. So yeah, maybe we know the play's coming back, but that doesn't mean we can't, or we shouldn't still continue to officiate. We should have that official come up and mark the spot, and then we can figure out penalty enforcement. And I love the back judge coming across too, because it was obviously getting a little heated. But the fact that our deep official was there and kept the spacing, once again, that's kind of what we're looking for in that regard. Don't forget to continue to officiate, mark your spot, and then move on. So in our last line of scrimmage play, I should say, this is, referees are probably falling asleep because they're like, this is all about deep and shorts and umpires and blah. They're not even really getting involved. Well, this play is for you, referees, because I want you to look what happens at the top. Our receiver's running a fly pattern. All right, so that's going to take our deep official, and he's going to be gone. He's going with that fly pattern. Now he's blocking downfield. So we know our deep official is not on the screen. He shouldn't be because he's keeping that spacing. But this is a run to the right. Now our line of scrimmage official is having to get out of the way. So where's our deep official? We would a lot of times expect our deep official, well, maybe they should be coming in. But wait a minute. They were way the heck out there. Look at our referee from the right. This is a referee who knows what he's doing. He's staying in the game, understands that what's going on. His deep official was way downfield, still coming in to clean that up. So referees, you guys aren't out of the picture. Now we see our deep official even hustling back, which is good, good for him as well. But this is a great job by the referee to recognize what's going on with the crew, to get to that out of bounds, and to help that player get out. And we'll watch it one more time just because I want to end on a good positive play like this. This is what we'd love to see. The referee recognizes it, bam, he sees it, he gets out there, great job. And even our deep wing comes down and goes to help out. So that's what we like to see on that. Before we move on to our I think our scrimmage kicks are next. They are. Doug, anything you want to add real quick before we move on?
No, I think you're making good points and covering things, and it's just again minimizing. When we made the mechanics manual changes and stuff like that, a lot of the stuff is still going to stay the same based off 5-person. We're just adding 2 more people. One thing I would encourage your short wings to do when you're pregame and maybe adding it into your pre-snap routine is to get in the habit of turning downfield. And I always flash a 2, right? So I let my deep wing know I have the 2. I have the spot to the 2. And so that will also help you remember with the deep wing, that's right, he has a spot to the 2. So that might be something that you might want to incorporate when you're pre-gaming and working that into your pre-snap routine as a short wing and communicating with your deep wing.
All right, perfect. So now we're going to talk a little bit about scrimmage kicks, punts, lineup, and responsibility. So here's our next. This is our slide and what it should look like. Now, if you notice.
I think Larry has something.
Oh, Larry's got something. Well, before we do that, let's bring Larry in. Larry, you got something for us. Go ahead, Larry. What do you got?
This was more for Doug. Doug, there was a question in the group chat as far as at one of the mechanics meetings about the back judge going to the number 3 receiver and the line judge taking the number 2 receiver. Is that something you guys changed?
No. So that in situations like that where you have reading your formation, this is something that, I kind of harp on in reading your formations. When we get into a trips tight, what I call a trips tight would be a trips when you have a traditional tight end or maybe an H-back that would be lined up as a back, but generally in the vicinity of where that tight end would line up. Then we want to switch the initial area of responsibility with those two officials, right? Generally, when you have somebody in tight, they're going to stay into block or maybe do a chip block and then release, and they're going to stay within that 10-yard belt. Majority of the film is going to, validate that aspect of it. When you get further on out and you have 3, trips to your side, if your inside guys are off the line and they can't be fouled at the snap, this is where the back judge can cheat inside and start taking a lot more time to read, run, pass, and then look at the second level, right? Help out the umpire should you have somebody releasing and getting a block at the second level, being the linebackers, right? Those are things that we might want to do. But initially, if the mechanics manual does say that the short wings has the number 2 receiver. But again, it's just a guide, and we want to read the formations and let that dictate where our eyes need to be, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. And then just one thing I did put in the chat just for everybody, just, having new guys work 7-man mechanics when there is an interception, that deep wing now becomes a short wing, and the short wing becomes the deep wing.
Correct.
And a lot of times those are hard some guys can't figure it out. And then we have that collision because they're both trying to get to that progress spot. So we just got to remember that.
Yeah. And the hardest thing was going from 5 to 7 for me was that reverse mechanic. I owned my spots and I took pride in it. And it wasn't until my deep wing was just like, hey, this is my spot. And I'm like, sorry. But the one thing that he taught me was always keep the play boxed in. If we can always keep the play boxed in, then that will help us when it becomes, when you have to transition on an interception or a change of possession, right? Now you have to get the goal line. They have to spot up to the 2. And so it's always keeping the play boxed in between the 2, and it should be looking just like this.
Got
it. So,
and to your point also is that if, one of these things, you talk about going back to the switching of the keys. It's funny because it's like you try to keep it simple for when you got newer people doing this. And yeah, if the tight end, if the tight end stays in, then the back judge should move to number 2. It just makes sense. Just kind of what Doug was saying. It just makes sense that way based off of the action of the play. But we got to remember, we got to be smart enough to do that and be able to realize we're going to make sure we cover everybody. But to the other point about reverse mechanics is that sometimes when you have an interception or fumble recover, literally boom, boom, right in front of you, and the short wing was already coming to do it, fine. They may end up taking that spot. But if it turns at all, if somebody picks up and goes the other way, you're right. And I think a lot of times we forget that. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoop, 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 hitting the brakes. Now I got to go the other way. But in the end, we have to remember to do that. So we're not like this. We're keeping exactly what you said, Doug. So I appreciate that very much.
Yeah. And even with the referee, right? Now you're the back judge. Now you got goal line. So those 3 positions are interchangeable if you really think about it. So
exactly. So it's everybody, it's keeping everybody in the game and understanding that it's not just the deeps that we're talking about. Everybody's going to have their own, mechanics per se in regards to how they're going to be doing this. So we're going to now look at. I do want to add one more
thing. I do want to add one more thing.
Yeah.
And this is something I was just made aware of, right? So observe the action, and I'm probably going to screw this up, but officiate the impact, right? So when you have a formation just like what they just showed, right? So observe the action. If we keep that in our mind, we need to find action. Now we officiate the impact that it had. So when you have that type of formation and getting away, and we're trying to get away from using the terminologies of keys, right? Let that be a guiding light of where you need to be looking at as well. So observe the action, officiate the impact.
I like it. All right, so we'll move on to our scrimmage kick. So try to line up, you always want to be 10 yards behind the deepest receiver, whoever that might be, especially the back judge. But field judge and side judge, try to line up in a line. It looks good, plus it keeps your angle. And why would I suggest this, and why would it be in a mechanics manual? Because you're about to see after we throw a couple clips at you. But the first clip I'm going to show you is, don't forget we're still doing our normal stuff that we do on scrimmage kicks. So on this one, you're going to see it's a short scrimmage kick, and the ball goes out of bounds. So normally in a 5-person, we might have one of the sideline, the short wings, the only wings, go down and then walk back. Well, this is now becomes whoever sideline it is. So this particular official is going to put his hand in the air and get the chop from the referee. Now, obviously, if the referee doesn't know the spot, it's going to be completely up to this official. But once again, we try to avoid 2 officials standing next to each other. If you're this short wing, kind of get out of there. You probably got something else to do. Go get a ball. Go do something because it just doesn't look the best. So, but this does look good. This looks good in regards to walking down. Don't forget that as an S or an F, you can't be in la-la land. You're still responsible on these balls that go out of bounds, airborne, to figure out where that ball went and to mark it accordingly. So that's just more of a reminder on that one. Now, here's a couple of the other ones that we're talking about, how the lineup is important. Because you see on this scrimmage kick, now you see where you're going to see where our officials are. Our officials are at the 40, but I put the arrows where we kind of want to be looking as those deep officials to keep an angle. Because as you're going to see what's going to happen, they're going to get straight lined. And they're not necessarily going to see there's no fouls or anything on this play. And I'm not saying there is any foul. There could have been a block into. There could have been a lot of things happen on this play. But if we're straight lined, we're not going to see it. So the arrows are representing where we're trying to keep our angle so that way we can see kind of what Doug was saying, like the point of impact. And we don't get straight lined on plays like this. So just kind of try to do that. And then what's going to happen on our next play is you're going to actually see what happens when the punt is, or a scrimmage kick is near a goal line. Because this is the other thing, is that you can see we got officials who are running back. If we started out, especially in this situation, when you know the goal line possibly could be threatened, just start on the pylon. Just start at the goal line. And this is about where it is. This is about the line of scrimmage when you're kicking the ball. You want to think goal line. Anything inside the 50, we want to start thinking goal line. Just go there because you want that goal line covered. You know, it depends on the kicking game, but still, when we're moving in these positions, we're not in the best to officiate, because look at the bottom of the screen here. This all is going to happen at the bottom. Now, was he over? Was the ball over? Well, we got officials in position, but there's some stuff that happens at the bottom. And you can see we've got our two officials, once again, kind of coming together. And I'm going to highlight this at the bottom. Why it's important we have our 7 officials. Our short wing, our short officials should be looking at this action because there's nothing else. Or even our deep officials, somebody should be looking at this. Now, once again, there's a player who's injured on this. Was this a foul? Time score, all that stuff, safety foul. We need to make sure we have eyes on this. And if we're going to rule this, we need to rule on it. We can't just have this go unnoticed. And nobody notices this action. And that's why it's important we talk about these having 7-person and utilizing it properly. Because if we miss something like this or don't have eyes on it or can't explain it, once again, they're going to be asking, why are we putting that extra official out there if we're not using it, properly and to that regard. So keep that in mind on those. Now here's another scrimmage kick. You're going to see it's going to happen here we're just going to look at the kick and see everybody's position. Once again, see how they're kind of they're in front of this? What it does is it's straight lines. It's hard to see that action right there if I'm looking from behind. I want to be behind it. We have a flag from the back judge. Once again, I don't, and actually our other officials just throw it. I don't necessarily care about that. But by putting us in this position, we're not seeing everything we need to see. So don't forget. And if you look at the top too, you also see our short wing is almost coming down and getting close to our deep wing. So once again, we're looking for that deeper action and working from the backside to the front side, not in the middle here for our shorts. So here's our final scrimmage kick play we're going to look at. You're going to see it's going to happen up here. Now you've got, it's kind of the tail or two tails here, because it's story two tails or whatever it might be. Because if you see our official at the bottom of the screen, see where he's at, kind of holding that, keeping that angle. Our official at the top of the screen is running up. Doesn't necessarily need to run up at this time. Wait for that action to end. The official at the bottom of the screen, it's got his angle, he's got his view. The top official is straight lined again. So try to keep that distance. Now, continue to watch what happens up at the top, because this is important. You can see our line of scrimmage official and our deep official, as this play continues, are standing pretty close to each other. We're trying to, once again, to avoid that. And now he realizes that he might have a goal line. So try to keep that spacing when you are that short wing official that's now becoming the deep official on the transition, because it is a scrimmage kick. Keep that spacing the best you can. All right, before we move on to our goal line stuff, Doug, anything else to add on scrimmage kicks?
Yeah, just remember, as a side judge, field judge, you have gunners. The back judge is going to be ruling on fair catch, the completion of the catch. He's got the receiver, okay? So if you look at that last play, the guy at the bottom, even though he didn't move, he was staring at the receiver. So we want to make sure that we understand where we're supposed to be looking at and what we're supposed to be seeing. And again, in a scrimmage kick, the gunner could be a snapper. It's who's ever the first threat that gets down there. That's who we need to focus our attention on. So again, everybody's going to say, well, it's my key's the number 2 receiver. Well, or number 1 receiver, right? No. Don't think about that on a scrimmage kick, okay? You have the gunners. You're looking for the first initial wave that's coming down, the first threat that's coming down, and that should take you to that action right there. So just remember, don't be ball watching. Start looking for the action and helping out that back judge, because he's got a rule on fair catch and the completion of the catch, or a muff, or whatever, KCI. Okay, so just remember on that stuff.
All right, perfect. So we're going to move on to field goals and tries. So here, I will drop down this banner here. Whoops, stop there so we can see that. Let me get back here. All right, let me get this banner down. Give me 1 second so everybody can see what we're looking at. All right, so field goals and tries. This is where our initial position is for field goals and tries. And it doesn't matter the yardage. You know, we change things in regards to if we drop an umpire back, if we're only using 5, depending on where the line of scrimmage is. This doesn't matter. The F and the B will always be underneath the uprights. The S will always go to their side. This is a little bit different than other levels that you might see. Just to make it easier, the S coming in from their side will always go to their side of the line of scrimmage, and the umpire will adjust accordingly. The H, the L, they're at the line of scrimmage, and the R is in their normal position. So just know that that's kind of the basic formation for that. We're going to go to our play now. So you're going to see what's going to happen here. And look, we're in that formation. I don't know if the umpire asked, I'm not worried about it, but you've got the 2 underneath, you've got the 2 in the middle, you got your line of scrimmage officials and your referee. The reason why we put this official here, I want you to watch this action. This is stuff that we need to see potentially and rule on. Not saying it's a foul, but it looks like, it could be a pull down, might not have any effect, but somebody better see this. This is why we put that second official there. In fact, if you look at this play, we talked about this play last week on our annual playoff meeting, is that you can see that actually it looks like the defender pushes his buddy over him, and it looks like a pull down. But if you don't have officials in the right spot, designated to look at what they need to look at, then you're going to miss a play like this if it is illegal, or know that exactly what happened when you look at it initially could be a pull through block or pull over block. But no, it's not, because that's why we put that second official in the middle there to look for this type of stuff. Also look for, any type of leverage. Now remember, leverage is different in high school, but, stepping on players' backs or doing stuff like that helps with that second official there as well. So now we're going to look at another field. This is actually a field goal attempt. Same thing. Field goal attempt. Now, this is why I showed this play. This is an important play to show. We need to make sure that we are in the proper position to officiate. This is I'm going to go to the play here, but I want to set it up. End of the game, or fourth down, play clock's coming down, whatever it might be. We decided we want to kick. We're going to kick, and now we're not in the best position because we forgot who's supposed to do what. You never want it to look like this. Because at this point, now we realize he tells his buddy up there, you got to go. Oh, am I going in? No, are you going in? Or who's going under? Uh-oh. What do we do? And then they kick the ball. This is like worst case scenario for us. This is what we're trying to avoid. This is why we're having this conversation right now, is to avoid a situation like that. Because that's the upright that's going to go over the top, and you're not going to have it covered because it's just in that situation. We don't ever want to put ourselves in that situation. And if you do find yourself in that situation, then as a referee, time and score permitting, we need to get in the right position. So you may want to have your umpire hold over the snap. We don't want to give anybody a delay game for our fault, but try to get ourselves in the proper position. We want to avoid that. So no, S, you're just coming in, umpire sliding over. F, you're going underneath. Back judge, you should already be there anyway. All right. Anything to add on field goals or tries, Doug?
No, I think you nailed it on that. F is always going to be under, and S, the way I remembered, if I'm an S, I'm the second umpire, right? S for second. So just remember your duties. Again, we haven't had opportunities to have enough reps to make this muscle memory. So this is a crash course, and this is something that you're going to have to probably watch some film and visualize yourself. Where do I go on the situation? Who has the spot in these cases? When do I go into reverse mechanics? When do I go into goal line mechanics? Goal line mechanics and reverse mechanics should be the same. We kept it simple, 7 and 5. So we try to minimize a lot of things in going from 5-person to 7-person. And again, just hitting the things that we've discussed. Communications. Know you got the help. Utilize the help, right? So that's all I got to add on those
All right,
aspects.
perfect. And speaking of goal line mechanics, that's our next discussion here. So moving on. All right, so there is our goal line setup. So basically, this is outside of 7 yards. So the line of scrimmage is 7 yards or beyond. This is kind of what we're looking at. We got our field judge and our side judge at the pylon backing off. This graphic kind of shows them on the line. You want to be back off the white to the edge of the white, or maybe even a little further, so you keep your angle. Our back judge is on the end line, and our line of scrimmage officials and umpire and referee are basically doing the same thing. Now, once that line of scrimmage is the 7 or in, we're going. So now you can see it's at the 5 here. So now what we're doing is we're going to bump our field judge and our side judge back to the end line with our back judge, and our line of scrimmage officials, our L and our H, they not only have the line of scrimmage, but now they have goal line responsibilities. So when the ball is snapped, they are moving from the 7 and in. They would be moving to the goal line at the snap. So those are your two differences in regards to when the ball's going in. We'll talk a little bit later about the ball going out. But when the ball's going in, that's what we're looking for. So now we've got some plays on this. You're going to see some examples of this. So here's our first goal line play. Now you see where we're at. You see that we've got our deep official, because we're outside the 7. Our deep official is back off the white in really good position to rule on goal line and rule on this play. And we see our line of scrimmage official is where they need to be as well. As you can see right there, he's highlighted. Now the ball is snapped. So what happens? Our line of scrimmage official should be holding. They don't need to be going anywhere. Now you see our official at the top. He's in good position. We've got a play. The one thing I will say, at this point, no need to move. This official decides they want to move, just stay where you're at and pivot if you need to. You don't even necessarily need to pivot on this one, but you definitely do not need to move. Starts out great. This is exactly what we're looking for. Just stay there. Just stay there and rule. No need to move. I know we're just kind of used to doing that in our using 5, but in this play, we didn't need to move, so don't. All right, on our next goal line play. So now we're inside 7. We can see we've got our line of scrimmage official, and we see we've got our deep official up at the top there. So we're all set there. So now, let me make sure we're here. All right, so now here we go. Let's see what happens on the play. We're stopped because we got everybody. We know where everybody's supposed to be. Now, what should our line of scrimmage official be doing? Our line of scrimmage official now needs to be moving to the goal line. Right when the ball is snapped, this official's in good position. This official at the top, at the right, needs to be moving to the goal line. Because even though this ends up being nothing, this is what we're looking for. At the snap, and you notice where the arrow is. You notice the arrow is not pointing to the pylon. It's pointing all near that G area, kind of near where that little white line is. That's where you want to go. You want to keep your angle. You don't want to necessarily move directly parallel. You kind of want to go a little bit on an angle so you can keep that good wide view of the goal line. That's what you're going, where you're going on the snap. So don't forget about that. All right, here's our next one. We're outside.
Hey, Tim, can you go back to that one play? I just want to point out a couple things.
This one.
So see that white line, and perfect. So see the white line that's behind the short wing where the box is? That's normally where I'll start. So I always have, if I got a line to gain inside the 10-yard line, I don't want them at the back of the white. If you're working on a field, and those of you that are coming down to Legion Field, you will have that white going all the way down, right? We want to use that media line. It's the white dotted line that's back, behind the sideline there. We want them working back there because we want to move in one motion. The older I get, the less coordinated I'm becoming as far as being able to move at an angle. I just want to move side to side, already be deep enough and be at the pylon at that position. When you look at the positioning at your deep wing on this, stand at a 45 to that pylon right behind it, to where you only have to take a step, maybe two, to either side to be able to officiate on the end line or the sideline. Because again, we want to minimize the amount of moving that we're doing in that fashion. So if he stood more at a 45 to where he could only, deep enough to where he could take a step to either side to work his money lines, I'll call it, right? That's going to put him in a better position in regards to doing that, because in this scenario, should they just throw a quick, out to this receiver at the top here, just lob the ball up and let him jump for it. We want both officials to be able to guard that sideline to make sure that, they're not stepping out. You got the back judge in that scenario that would step up to the end line and be able to rule on it if it was a tight, pass to the back pylon in the corner back there. So again, it's just keeping it boxed in and doing the minimal movement that you need to do.
All right, cool. So going to our next play, we're going to see a couple more examples of this. Like on this play, you can see our deep official at the top. That's not where we want them. Just kind of like Doug was saying, he's standing literally on top of the pylon. So you don't want to be there. To Doug's point, you're going to see now it's going to come down to the bottom. And once again, we were outside of 7, so our deeps have the goal line. Same thing to Doug's point. There's that media line there. You can see it should be back, because when in this particular case now we're moving, we wouldn't have to move if we were already there. So everything to Doug's point, because this is a tight play. You don't want to be moving and trying to make a play, a call like this. You want to be stationary, keep that head stationary. And you can see now our deep comes up and marks it. But remember, what we're going to do is, I've mentioned this earlier, our deep official has the inside the 2. The 2 and out is our short wing official. It's our line of scrimmage official. So if this out of bounds area or spot is beyond the 2-yard line, then we're looking for our line of scrimmage official to come and mark this. So just keep that in mind. That's how that mechanic works and how you determine who has forward progress. If this forward progress was inside the 2, then this would be 100% correct. You'd want this deep wing to make that spot. So just know that that's a difference as well in that mechanic and how we rule on a play like this. Now this one is outside, clearly outside, so we know who's going to have goal line. But this kind of goes into this this crew communication thing, because we've got that 2-yard line. So who's So see, we're still looking for our short or line of scrimmage official to come down and make this spot. We're not necessarily looking for our deep official to do that. Our deep official should already probably been at the pylon, back in the white and that media line that Doug was talking about, and now just helping out our official, our line of scrimmage official, as to where the spot is. That's kind of more what we're looking for specifically on a play like this. Now we're back to the inside. That's the problem here. The line of scrimmage is inside the 7, but where are our officials? This is one of those where we sometimes forget, and we're not used to this. So we all just kind of get in this routine, and then we forgot to push the guy back to the end line, and we have that goal line responsibility, because then what ends up happening is now you've got everybody real close to one another, and then there they are. They're standing next to each other on the pylon. So that's why we're trying to avoid that. And once again, being kind of fun, just because that's what we're doing. But these are the things we're trying to avoid, and that's why having that situational awareness, saying, I'm at the 7, the line of scrimmage is 7. I got to push. And this is both officials, both sets of officials can help out, especially with the O2Os. And the umpire can help out. If they see it, even the referee can help out. Back judge, you can help out. Hey, you're inside the 7. Because you never want to run into this situation, because once again, then they start asking, why do we have the extra officials out there if you're going to stand right next to each other? All right, our final goal line play here is, you're going to see it at the bottom. Outside, we know what we're doing. But this is that communication aspect. This is a really tight play. And our official was at the pylon. He was actually back where he should be. He had to move a little bit. But I don't know if you saw the communication here, because this is a lot going on. Did that player step out? We have goal line extended issues. You can see that official, the deep official, is not in the frame, which is a good thing. He shouldn't be in the frame, because he's keeping his angle to know. Now, he probably should have been up a little bit, but I'm not going to critique that too much. And the communication. If the short wing, if the line of scrimmage official had that player out before getting close to the goal line, then he's coming down and marking him out. If not, then he can only help whether if the player was out or give some assistance on the pylon if he has any. But this communication right there, I'm not going up touchdown as a deep official until I get information from my line of scrimmage official. My line of scrimmage official doesn't have anything to offer, then it's my call. But before I do that, I need to verify that, and they do, and then they go up. So this is a good example of the communication that we do in that regard. Now, before we actually call it a night here, I want to talk about reverse goal line mechanics. So actually, I'm going to have Doug talk a little bit about the reverse goal line mechanics. Doug, we now are doing the reverse goal line. Where do you want everybody moving, when, and how?
Well, 7 and 5, right? So from the 5, when we're snapping from the 5 coming out or inside the 5, we got to get to the goal line at the snap. And it doesn't have to be a beeline to it, right? We just need to be moving towards the goal line and be able to be in position should we need to rule on the goal line. A lot of people get so fixated that I got to get from point A to point B, and they're not officiating the play. So snap, and we move to the pylon, and then we work back into the field of play. Okay. When you get to 7-man or 7-person mechanics, we got to think the H is going to have the goal line responsibilities up to the 10-yard line. And does that mean he has to go to the pylon all the way from the 10? No, he just needs to take a step if needed, and he needs to be able to get back to cover the goal line if it needs to be. If it comes to the L side, obviously the L is going to have to to get to that goal line to make, or pylon, to make sure that should he have to rule on an errant snap or anything else, and it threatens that pylon, he's got to be able to get to the pylon, So we just got to be cognizant of where we are, and it's just the same as in 5-person, right? Going in, when the back judge gives up the goal line, he's communicating, it's your goal line, right? So we got to do that every time that we're in goal line or reverse goal line mechanics, okay? And that will help push your person off to be at the right spot should they need to. But specifically in reverse goal line mechanics, right? We just need to know that we have to cover that money line first.
Well, and the other thing to remember is once we get outside the 10, referee, you got it. And sometimes a referee, when I work referee in that situation, even a 5-person, I'm going to widen out where I probably normally am, because I know that in that 5, from that 10 to 15, where if I'm normally at 15 back, between that period going out, I'm going to widen out. So in case I've got goal line, I can do that. So referees, don't forget about that. So Doug, we did have a couple questions that I want to go through here real quick, and then we'll call it a night. But first question we had was, we kind of talked about if it doesn't matter on a field goal where the ball is spotted, we're all in the same, and in 7-person, we're doing the same thing. It doesn't matter 20, 25, 55, we're all doing the same thing. But on a busted, a scrimmage kick, because remember, field goals in high school are scrimmage kicks, just like punts. So once that ball crosses the plane, it's dead. Touchback. But let's say we don't have one that crosses the plane. It's a live ball. How do you cover that as a broken field goal that has not crossed the plane yet?
You want to treat it just like you would, just like we were talking about, just like a scrimmage kick, right? So in that scenario where we have the double umpires and then we have the back judge and field judge underneath the uprights, right? So depending upon where we're snapped from. So if they're snapping it from the 30-yard line, let's say, and attempting a 47-yard field goal, right? We need to have the back judge and field judge get out from underneath there and get to it. If it is when we're snapped from the 35, the side judge has to be cognizant of it, and he's going to want to widen out some. You might get caught up with players in that scenario, right? So that's why we're going to want the back judge and field judge to take that angle and get wide, because we might have that side judge caught in the middle in between players. In that aspect of that.
Well, and then the other side to this, so it's very similar, is now it's the fire or the bad snap or the fake. What are we doing now? It's pretty easy, but I'll let you say.
Well, cover the play what is needed. So again, if it's a fire or an errant snap, right? So or they're going to pass. Again, we're snapped at the 35, and then you got somebody that's scrambling on that. Line of scrimmage, you got to hold that line. You have to hold that line. Your back judge, field judge, and side judge, you got to bust your butt to get back to your position to be able to officiate on that play. It's going to be difficult, at times with the side judge being in there. But it's all just making sure that we cover the important lines on there, because we might have a line to gain that's involved in that scenario as well. So we all got to be cognizant of that aspect. So again, you want to make sure that we don't need to be underneath the goalpost anymore at that point, right? So let's get back to a position where we can see the action and officiate the impact, right? So let that be a guiding light of where it is that you need to be, okay? Again, if the end line's not threatened, work your way back up into the field where it needs to be. So,
no, and that's about it. We did have one question going back to onside kicks. It was about who has what, first touching, whatnot. Well, when you have four if you have an onside kick that happens and it's not known, well, the two officials that are on the kicker's restraining line, they're going to be looking at blocks, and the officials who are on the receiver's restraining line, they're going to be looking at touching or any type of reception or kick catching interference or things like that. So it's usually the officials who are on the receiver's restraining line are going to be looking for that touching or looking for any type of illegal action in regards to the receiver. The people who are on the kicking line, or the people who, if we have 6 in the box, they're looking at blocks. They're looking at that contact. They're not necessarily looking at the ball. The ball in those situations are always going to go to that line because that receiver's restraining line, that's the line that means everything in that play. So that's why we kind of give the responsibility to that on those. So I'm going to, if there's any last-minute tips here or anything that we need to go over, I think we kind of went through our entire agenda. So we'll just kind of wrap it up here. Questions, any more questions that come in? And before we call it a night, first I'll bring Larry back in. Any final tips or thoughts, Larry, that you might have that you want to add?
Yeah, Doug, maybe you could talk about fake field goals, the guys that are under, right? Where they're going and where they want to be at, right? Get away from underneath that and just talk about fake field goals for a minute. And when we do have those busted plays, right, finding work and doing something.
Didn't we do that?
Yeah, we did. We covered a little bit of that. And again, it's all going to be predicated on where the ball snapped at, right? Because the closer we get, the more truncated the field becomes. And then we become, we don't know where to go. So again, if we have the ball and it's snapped at the 20 and in, right, it's going to be really hard for that side judge to get back out to his position on the wing, right? So now if you just make a beeline down the back end line in that situation, and we start trying to cover our lines in that situation, right? Or fight to get to a point to where you have a good angle, but we have the end line covered by the 2 at least, and we're going to widen our view on that. And then we got our short wings that can get the sidelines in that scenarios, right? And again, it's just doing the best you can to box the play in those situations. There's not a black and white answer to it. It's just do not stay underneath the uprights. First and foremost.
Yeah, I think
and
that's
I think for everybody, I think for both of our groups, right? Our mechanics manual is available on our SNOAfootball.com website. I'd encourage you to just look at it, find your position, and just start reading those things in there. And don't start reading it the day of your game. Start getting into it and build that muscle memory, and you'll be better prepared to work your position. But it is a challenge. But I can tell you, for the North and the South, like I said, we fought to get these 7-man mechanics for better coverage for the players and the teams. So.
No, absolutely, and I'm glad you were able to do that. I know there was another one talking about the swinging gate. If they're lined up in a scrimmage kick formation, meaning that they've got a player who's 7 yards deep in a holder position and a player 3 yards behind them, you're going into this normal field goal mechanic because you could have a kick out of a swinging gate, and you're just going to cover the rest. Just like usually a lot of times what will happen is that the umpire will stay with the ball and the S will go with the gate, but maybe we'll because we're trying to keep it simple, the S will, if you're coming to the S's side and the gate's going to the umpire side, then maybe we're going to switch that. Doug, does that sound good to you? Is that what we're thinking if we have a gate?
Yeah, I think that's going to be the easiest way to do it. Because if you get into the minutia of things, the S is technically always supposed to go to the strong side, right? And he's supposed to move the umpire over or whatever. We're trying to keep it simple to where, because we're switching sidelines, right? Whatever sideline you're coming off of as an S, you're just going to bump the umpire over in that situation, right? So there's no need for you to run 50 yards across the field when we can just bump you guys over in that scenario, okay? But again, just knowing what to officiate in that scenarios, right? So the S, you are now a second umpire, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to start thinking in that regards, okay? When it comes to the swinging gate, right? that's going to cause some things that we have to think about, right? Are they in a legal scrimmage, scrimmage kick formation? Do they get the numbering exceptions? Who's eligible? Who's not eligible? And it's also being cognizant of all those things. So when you bring up something like that, where you do have a swing gate, and thank God I haven't seen one this year, that's going to trigger a lot of things for everybody to start thinking about in formations like that.
No, absolutely. We just got to keep our head on. So, well, we've been going for 90 minutes here, so I appreciate it. Any last thoughts, Larry? Any last second thoughts before we call it a night?
No, thank you everybody for the conversations on the chat on the side. A lot of good stuff going there. Thank the guys from the north, the south, and everybody. And we look forward to seeing you guys in the playoffs. And again, thank you from all the associations and everybody. We're just happy to be here. And it's the best time of the year for football. So
always is. Doug, anything from you last minute?
No, have great games this week, and just come prepared. Ask questions. You guys got plenty of great guys that are knowledgeable in 7-person mechanics, whether it's in the north or south or northeast. Just reach out to people, guys. Take the time to maybe have a pregame with the crew, since this will be our first time working together, this season. So maybe have a Zoom call or something like that where you can go over these things and figure out how you're going to handle certain things. Again, guidelines, let the play dictate where we need to be. But these are just guidelines on what to do. And again, the main thing, don't have 2 officials at the same spot. That's the big thing.
Exactly. That's exactly what we're trying to avoid. That's the big one. So, well, I want to thank Doug and all the SNOA board, Larry, the commissioner, for allowing me to have some fun with you guys tonight. So I appreciate the opportunity. It was a lot of fun. Hopefully everybody was able to learn something from it. And looking forward to doing this more often. So good luck in your playoff games. If you have any questions, you know how to get a hold of us. Until then, we will see you the next time. I'm Tim Kiefer from MIT.org. We'll talk to you later. So long, everybody.